Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today, Dr. John Weil, Middle Tennessee State University professor, presidential scholar. We're talking about the developments in Washington with the Mueller investigation. Dr. Weil, just to get back to what Bob Mueller does next, is there any chance that he and his team will sit down with President Trump for an interview about this, or is that just something that's sort of been like a political football that's been, well, I'd say kicked back and forth, but mostly it's been kicked back and forth between the president and really Giuliani and some other people. Right. Mueller says nothing, but...
Right. I mean, one of the fascinating things about it is Giuliani keeps saying we need to wrap the investigation up, but the person who seems to be delaying any interview is, in fact, apparently Giuliani himself.
What about subpoenas? This would seem to be perhaps the next flashpoint.
Right.
Mueller may want subpoenas for the president himself to appear before a grand jury. It might be for documents. That looks like it'll be challenged in court, going again back to Watergate and other presidential scandals. The president doesn't have a very good track record to go in there and think he's going to win, because other presidents have lost.
Right. I mean, U.S. versus Nixon, you know, certainly the tapes were revealed. And for that matter, what could end up, got to mention Aviata. Help me with the name. Avenatti.
Yeah, Avenatti.
You know, the president is also not immune from, well, he may be, whether you'd have a civil suit while he's president is one thing, but he's not immune from investigation of a civil suit. And so, you know, and
Stormy Daniels' lawyer thinks he's going to get him under oath in that case. He does,
and I think he may be a little over-optimistic there. I think one of the things in the Clinton versus Clinton case was that, yeah, I forgot, I've lost my train of thought here. Right, the court was very almost nonchalant about it's not going to be that big a deal, you know, and detracting from the president's duties. And I think in retrospect, it turned out to be a much bigger deal than was expected.
Now, assuming that this Supreme Court would go along with previous Supreme Courts, whether it's been about the Watergate tapes or anything else, that's one thing. But given the divided nature of the court and a potential new justice coming on, Brett Kavanaugh, who has given some conflicting ideas about presidential powers and authorities, would it be a different situation with a subpoena if it goes to the court after Kavanaugh goes on the bench?
I mean, it could be, but you know, one of the things to remember about the Nixon court, 4 of those justices, I mean, it was an 8-0 decision against him. Rehnquist recused himself because he had been in the Justice Department, but 4 of the people who voted against Nixon were his own appointees.
Can a sitting president be indicted? That seems to be one of the things that people have been talking about.
There's nothing in the Constitution that prohibits it. Justice policy and the past president and the Nixon administration would suggest that it could not, but even there, that's fairly small comfort, because he's not going to be a sitting president forever.
Well, can he be tried after he goes out of office? And if that happens afterwards, how does he govern effectively when he's facing some kind of major indictment, and that's in abeyance until after he's the next election's over with?
Well, I don't know. I mean, my guess would be that if there's evidence of crime, he would be named, as Nixon was, as an unindicted co-conspirator. And the expectation would be that Congress maybe would hold hearings and decide whether or not to have an impeachment.
Can a president pardon himself?
The Constitution is silent. There's no restriction in the Constitution, but one of the oldest legal principles is that no man or woman should be a judge in their own case.
Well, a lot of it came from the old days of the English kings. Is there anything on record where an English king pardoned himself? Well,
see, I don't think it got to that, because the English system is that the king is above the law. You know, the king can do no wrong. So I don't think it would have been a case.
Well, going back to Watergate again, let's assume somehow President Trump is out of office. Either his office ends and he's facing charges, or he is indicted. Is there a process by which Mike Pence, the incoming president, would issue a pardon similar to what Gerald Ford did?
It may depend on whether Pence plans to run for president. I think that was probably the most unpopular thing that Ford did in his presidency, and probably accounted for the fact that he lost.
This president has a base of somewhere between 30 to high 30s to low 30s in terms of percentage.
Yes.
Obviously, there's people on the other side who don't like President Trump at all, want to see him out of office if at all possible. Are we getting into not only a constitutional crisis, but almost a revolutionary situation if this thing comes to loggerheads? I mean, I hate to start talking about things like that because they're kind of scary, but...
I hope not. I mean, whatever people think of Pence, I don't, you know, if the president were to be removed, there is someone there with governmental experience.
Will Bob Mueller be sending a report to Congress and said, this is what I have found? Will he do this before or after the election and say, y'all take it from there, I'm over with?
I think if he does that, it would probably be after the election, assuming it's not going to be, you know, next week to get it done before Labor Day. But my guess would be it would be after the election.
And from that point, he would maybe go ahead and finish out the indictments and investigations he's already got going.
Right.
But as far as the president's concerned, you think he would say, here's what it is. It's up to you guys as your responsibility under the Constitution to decide whether there's something else you need to do about this.
I think so. Now, again, with the caveat that I don't know what that would do at the end, you know, particularly if Trump were to serve one term and he was named as an unindicted co-conspirator, would prosecutors then feel comfortable going ahead and having a prosecution?
Dr. Vial, thank you for joining us. It's interesting times.
Yes, it is.
Where we go from here.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. Hope you can be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough politics in the meantime, go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. The Zoo commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.